Hello, friends. Welcome into Minnesota Vikings Now. I am Tom Downey here with some rumors and news around the Vikings ahead of their Week 10 matchup this week. We begin with Mike Zimmer and whether or not the Vikings' longtime head coach is on the hot seat. I am of the mindset, and I've seen reports from ESPN, that the Vikings the struggles are maybe putting Zimmer on that hot seat right now. And ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that there have been whispers players are kind of worn out by his coaching style. I do believe he's on the hot seat right now, and I've seen your comments. I know that many of you feel the exact same way. With that said, there is still plenty of time for Minnesota to turn this thing around and kind of get back on track after a couple bad losses. That begins, of course, this weekend on the road against the LA Chargers and the Packers. So it could get better, could also maybe get a little bit worse in Minnesota as well. I want to make this point. I don't believe Mike Zimmer's a bad head coach, but he's been here for a long time, or at least I should say in Minnesota for a long time. 7-9 in 2014, then boom, 11-5 playoffs. They lose. That stinks. 8-8 the next year. 2017, his best run, 13-3, 1-1 in the playoffs. Stats don't count buys, but I am of the mindset that they should always count. Regardless, 3-3, 8-7-1 in 2018, 10-6, 1-1 in the postseason in 2019. The pattern has been every other year Minnesota makes the playoffs, but 7-9 last year, off to a slow 3-5 start this season, in which Minnesota has continuously found weird and strange and creative ways to lose games. I think overall, for the totality of his career, in which Mike Zimmer is 67-52-1, he's been a good coach for Minnesota. I don't think Mike Zimmer is a bad head coach by any stretch of the imagination. The question is he a good enough coach for Minnesota for as long as he's been there? Yes, sometimes the grass ends up looking greener on the other side than what it actually is. But if Minnesota goes 8 years with Mike Zimmer at the helm and 2 playoff wins, it's not it. I don't think that's good enough. I think at that point you got to seriously consider making a real change. It might get worse. The Lions can attest to that. But it's not going to, if it doesn't get any better over 8 years, your hand's kind of forced at that point, because doing the same thing, expecting new results, well, we know what that is the definition of. So what do you guys think? What should the Vikings do, with head coach Mike Zimmer? Type F for fire or type in K for keep. This is the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad break comes here on YouTube, head down there and let me know what you want to do with the Vikings head coach. I say keep for now. I think you give Zimmer the rest of the season, or at least up until you are officially eliminated if it comes that early in the season. I don't want to bail on Zim quite yet. I don't know if he's the right guy to lead Minnesota, but I think the next couple weeks, and we'll call it 2 months, big time for his future moving forward. Let's turn now our attention to Dalvin Cook, the latest on this situation. I'm sure many of you already really know what's going on with the Vikings back. In case you don't, Cook is facing a lawsuit over an alleged domestic violence incident or incidences against his ex-girlfriend. Now, what's going on here is that the waters are extremely muddied. Both parties claiming they are the victim. Adam Schefter apologized on ESPN for the way he handled the Dalvin Cook situation. There was no use of alleged. He just kind of sent what the agent sent over there. As it relates currently to Minnesota, seems like they're just going to let this play out, which is always the good way to go about it, I believe. Dalvin Cook is eligible to play. There are no criminal charges. There's evidence for and against both sides there. There's some photos that show the alleged victim of Dalvin Cook, bruised with her face. There's also a video of her saying she'd shoot Dalvin Cook. So there's a lot going on there. Here's my mindset. You don't always have to have a take. It's okay to just say, I will let this play out, which I think is the right thing to do here for Dalvin Cook. Allow more information to come. You don't have to react one way or the other, and we can check in the coming days, weeks, or months, and then figure out who did the bad things here in this exact situation. Hopefully, everyone's doing okay now is really, I think, all you can hope for at this point. And if you guys want more Vikings news, rumors, and videos all season long, then subscribe. We are free here at Minnesota Vikings now, and we always will be. So it's a competition. We are way behind even our Lions channel here at Chat Sports. So let's get that changed. Free videos by subscribing right now. Let's talk injury now. Patrick Peterson. Now, Peterson is eligible to return next week for Minnesota. Remember, 3 games, not 3 weeks on IR. Mike Zimmer said he's doing well in his recovery, although he did say more or less we have to wait and see because he kind of threw his medical staff under the bus a little bit, saying along the lines of, they said the same thing about Danielle Hunter and Michael Pierce, who we'll get to more in depth in a second. But seems like things are going well for Pat Pete, and getting him back would be a big boost for Minnesota. He was playing pretty damn well before his injury. Now, I think part of that was teams were like, well, why throw at Peterson? We can just throw it at Bashaud Breeland. So I think that's a natural thought right there. I hope Cameron Dantzler stays in lineup. He's not been perfect, but I like him more than Breeland, although Breeland has been better in recent weeks. So Peterson is eligible to come off of IR after this week's game, meaning next week against Green Bay and Devontae Adams. He could return, and by that point, Aaron Rodgers as well. So make your predictions in the comments section for me. Will Patrick Peterson play next week? Y for yes, he will. N for no, he will not. One player it sounds like Minnesota isn't going to have is Michael Pierce. And this is a troubling situation as it relates to Minnesota and the medicals and whatnot. Peterson is apparently not all that close to returning from his elbow injury. Now, he had not been placed on IR. The team thought he'd be back in time for the Cowboys game against Week 8. Now it's been 5 weeks with that elbow injury. A much longer recovery time than thought. Maybe the injury was worse than initially planned, but if the Vikings really thought Pierce would be out for this long, he would have been placed on IR. Instead, he's just hanging out on the active roster, taking up a spot, being an active player each and every week. Before his injury, Pierce was doing, actually, I thought, okay and as a pass rusher. I think the overall run defense for Minnesota has been at least a little bit of a concern for this team. On the bright side, they have some depth. Dalvin Tomlinson, I like him. Armon Watts has been a nice little surprise in Pierce's absence. Richardson is, well, at this point, I think he's very much on the back 9, which is me being generous of his NFL career. But hopefully Pierce comes back in the not too distant future. Now, whenever Pierce comes around, I'm sure we'll include that in one of our many videos here at Minnesota Vikings Now. I try to give you guys as much video content as we can, but it is a competition. There's lots of channels here at Chat Sports and still a fairly small office. So subscribe today to youtube.com, Vikings Today, if you want more free videos. One last note, also more of a serious one, is on Dakota Dozier. He was hospitalized due to some COVID-19 complications. I saw some mention of pneumonia in one report, but that wasn't consistent across the board. Dozier was reportedly having trouble breathing, is now in stable condition. He actually went on the team's COVID list on Friday, and seems like it kind of got worse and worse as the days went on. Seems like he's doing okay now. Very glad to hear that. NFL players in general are not among the more high-risk people for COVID-19, but offensive linemen are normally bigger people. That's kind of where you maybe get a little bit more concerned. Seems like he's doing okay now. I am very glad to hear that. Always a bit scary when you got to go to the hospital for anything. So hopefully Dozier's recovery continues and he rejoins the Vikings in the near future this season. Here's what Mike Zimmer, who has made his public comments on COVID-19 very clear recently. Quote, "It's serious stuff." I don't know. Like 29 guys are getting tested because of close contact, including myself. Just got to do what we do. I'll make note, apparently, Kirk Cousins not included inside that grouping because as a non-vaccinated person, let's see, that recently changed, he would have to miss 5 days. So sounds like everything's getting better for Dozier. Hopefully no outbreak issues for Minnesota as they get ready to take on the Chargers this Sunday.